Amelia sat motionless in the driver's seat, her fingers trembling on the steering wheel. The city lights blurred into streaks through the rain-drenched windshield, and the low hum of her car engine was the only sound that dared to exist in that suffocating stillness. Her mind was spinning, trying to grasp the reality that had just unfolded in her inbox moments ago. "We regret to inform you that your position has been terminated effective immediately." Those words had shattered her. She had poured her soul into that job. The late nights, the endless effort, the prayers whispered every morning before stepping into the office. It wasn't just work, it was supposed to be her purpose. Her big break, the open door she had prayed for. And now, with a single email, it was gone. She leaned back in her seat, staring blankly through the foggy window. The rain wasn't stopping. It poured harder, almost in rhythm with the ache building inside her chest. She felt invisible, forgotten, and small. "Why, God?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why now? Why this? Haven't I trusted you enough?" She had tried to be strong, tried to hold on to faith when things didn't make sense. But tonight, her faith felt like a thread unraveling between her fingers. She couldn't see any reason, any lesson, any mercy in what had happened. It just felt cruel. She rested her head against the steering wheel, tears streaming freely. Her phone buzzed again. Another email, probably another reminder of the life that was slipping away from her. She ignored it. She didn't want to see one more thing that told her she wasn't enough. Minutes passed, maybe hours, time blurred. The rain continued its relentless song against the glass. And then, out of nowhere, her phone lit up with a notification that made her pause. It wasn't an email this time. It was a YouTube suggestion. "God says, this is not an accident. You're meant to hear this." She frowned, a weak, skeptical laugh escaping her lips. "Really?" she muttered. "Now." But something, she couldn't explain what, stopped her from swiping it away. It wasn't curiosity. It was something deeper. A strange, still feeling inside her chest that whispered, "Wait." She hesitated for a few seconds, then tapped the video. The screen lit up, and a soft instrumental tune played in the background. Then a calm, gentle voice spoke. "You think this is an ending, but it's not. You think I've forgotten you, but I haven't. I see your tears, I see your pain, and I want you to know, this is not an accident." Amelia's heart stuttered. Her breath hitched as she froze, staring at the screen. The words pierced straight through her fog of doubt, hitting something raw inside. "You've been asking for direction," the voice continued, "and I am answering. Not by keeping you where you were, but by removing what was keeping you from your next chapter. What you lost wasn't a failure, it was me protecting you." She covered her mouth as silent tears fell again, this time not from despair, but something else, recognition. "How?" she whispered. "How could this video know exactly what I prayed?" The voice went on, steady and full of peace. "You wanted growth, but you couldn't grow there. You asked me to use you, but I had to clear the path first. Every delay, every disappointment, none of it is random. It's alignment. You are being guided, even when it feels like you're being left behind." Amelia gripped her phone tighter. She had prayed that very morning for a sign, any sign, that God still heard her. She had begged for a word, something to tell her she wasn't just shouting into silence. And now, here it was. She couldn't look away. The rain outside softened as if even the storm had paused to listen. "When you feel like everything is falling apart," the voice said, "remember, I am not the author of confusion. I am the author of order, of purpose. What you lost is not gone, it's being transformed. The pain you feel now is the soil where new blessings will grow." Amelia wiped her face, but the tears kept coming. She didn't even care anymore. Her car felt like holy ground, a small sanctuary where heaven had chosen to speak to her directly. The video's voice softened, almost like a whisper. "My child, I am not punishing you. I am preparing you. What you called rejection was my redirection. What you call an ending, I call a beginning. You are right where you need to be." She let out a trembling breath, her heart aching in a different way now, not from despair, but from the deep, overwhelming sense of being seen. For weeks, she had felt like her prayers were bouncing off the ceiling, unanswered. But this was too personal to be coincidence. Too perfectly timed. The video ended, but the silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. Amelia leaned back, her mind replaying those words. She glanced through the rain-streaked window. The city lights had softened, the storm was easing, and through a thin crack in the clouds, a faint beam of moonlight shone down, glimmering on her windshield. It felt like a divine whisper saying, "I'm still here." Her lips parted in a shaky smile. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel abandoned. She didn't have all the answers, but she had something better, the quiet assurance that this moment, this loss, this night, wasn't meaningless. As she sat there, the radio, which she hadn't even realized was on low volume, suddenly shifted stations on its own. Static cleared, and an old worship song began to play, one she hadn't heard since her teenage years. Musical note. When you can't trace my hand, trust my heart. Musical note. Amelia let out a soft laugh through her tears. "Okay, God," she whispered. "I get it, you're here." She turned off the engine but stayed in the car, listening to the song until the last note faded. The storm had stopped completely now, leaving behind only the scent of rain and the sound of dripping water from nearby rooftops. She felt lighter, not because everything was fixed, but because she wasn't carrying it alone anymore. Maybe losing her job wasn't the disaster she thought it was. Maybe it was the very thing that needed to happen for her to step into something new, something designed specifically for her. She thought back to the video again, to those words, "This is not an accident." No, it wasn't. She could feel that now. The timing, the message, even the heartbreak, it was all part of something divine. Amelia finally started the car, this time not to escape but to go home. The roads glistened beneath the streetlights, reflecting the last of the rain. The world looked different, not because it had changed, but because she had. And as she drove, a quiet peace settled over her heart, a whisper of faith reminding her that she wasn't lost. She was being led. That night, as she fell asleep, she didn't ask, "Why?" anymore. Instead, she said softly into the darkness, "Thank you, God, for reminding me that even in my confusion, you're still speaking." Because deep down, she finally understood, none of this was by accident. She was meant to hear that message. She was meant to be found by it. 2 months had passed since that night in the rain, the night everything changed. The night Amelia finally realized that what she thought was her ending was, in truth, her beginning. The job she lost, the pain that followed, the message she stumbled upon, all of it had shaped her in ways she could never have imagined. She wasn't the same woman who sat crying in that car. Something inside her had awakened, a quiet courage that whispered, "Keep walking, even when you can't see the road." And so she did. At first, it wasn't easy. Each morning still came with moments of doubt. There were days she stared at her bank balance and wondered how long she could keep going without a steady paycheck. But every time fear tried to take over, she remembered that divine voice, "This is not an accident." So instead of rushing to find another corporate job, she prayed. She waited, and in that waiting, she began to listen more deeply. One afternoon, while scrolling through community posts online, she noticed a small announcement: volunteers needed for youth mentorship at the local community center. Her finger hovered over the screen. She almost skipped it. Volunteering didn't pay bills. But something inside her heart stirred again. "Start where you are." That quiet whisper returned, the same one that had led her to that video months ago. And without overthinking it, she sent an email to apply. The next week, she found herself standing in a small, colorful room at the center. The walls were covered with inspirational quotes painted by kids, messages about hope, kindness, and courage. She smiled faintly, feeling a strange peace settle over her. At first, she was only supposed to help organize events. But one day, the director asked her to speak to a small group of young women, girls struggling with confidence, purpose, and the fear of failure. Amelia hesitated. "Me?" she asked. "I'm not a speaker." But the director just smiled. "You don't have to be. Just tell them your story." So she did. That first session, only 2 girls showed up. They sat quietly, arms crossed, looking down. Amelia felt awkward and unsure, but she began anyway, sharing her journey, the heartbreak of losing her job, the hopelessness that had almost swallowed her, and how one small, divine message had changed everything. At first, They didn't say much. But as she spoke, she saw something shift in their faces, a flicker of understanding, a glimmer of recognition. One of the girls finally asked, "So you really think God cares about stuff like that? Like losing a job?" Amelia smiled softly. "I don't just think it," she said. "I know it. Because when everything fell apart, that's when I realized he was holding it together in ways I couldn't see." When the session ended, one of the girls lingered behind. "I don't know why," she said shyly, "but I feel like that message was for me too." Amelia's heart warmed. "Maybe it was," she replied. That night, she went home with tears in her eyes, not the kind that came from pain, but from gratitude. For the first time in a long while, she felt alive. Over the next few weeks, the mentorship group grew. 2 girls turned into 5, then 10. Word began to spread about the Faith and Purpose sessions that helped young women rediscover hope. The community center offered her a permanent slot every Thursday evening. Each meeting was different. Sometimes they talked about fear, sometimes about dreams, sometimes about heartbreak. But through it all, Amelia could feel something divine flowing through her words, as if she were simply the messenger for something much greater. She began posting short reflections online, small encouragements inspired by her experiences. One morning, she shared a quote that had carried her through her hardest days: "What feels like rejection is often God's redirection." The post went viral. Hundreds of comments flooded in, strangers from around the world thanking her, sharing how her words had touched them at just the right time. Amelia stared at her phone, overwhelmed. She whispered softly, "This isn't me, this is you." And deep inside, she heard that same quiet reassurance. "Exactly. I told you this was not an accident." Months rolled by, and the group she had started out of obedience, and a little bit of fear, became something far bigger. It wasn't just a mentorship program anymore. It was a movement. Women from all walks of life began attending. Single mothers, students, women who had lost jobs, lost faith, lost direction. They shared stories, they prayed, they laughed, they cried. Every Thursday evening, the small room was filled to the brim, the sound of laughter and healing echoing through the walls. And every time Amelia spoke, she saw in their eyes what she had once felt, that desperate longing to know that they hadn't been forgotten. One night, after everyone had left, a young woman named Harper approached her. She looked hesitant, her voice trembling. "I almost didn't come tonight," she said. "I've been struggling, thinking maybe God's done with me. But this morning, a video popped up on my phone, one that said, 'This is not an accident. You're meant to hear this.'" Amelia froze. The title was exactly the same as the one that had changed her life months ago. Harper continued, "When I saw your flyer later today, I knew I was supposed to be here." Tears filled Amelia's eyes. She smiled and reached out, holding Harper's hands. "I understand completely," she said. "Because that same message found me once too, when I thought everything was lost." That night, when Amelia got home, she couldn't stop thinking about it. The circle had come full. The same words that had rescued her were now rescuing others through her. She walked outside into her small backyard and looked up at the night sky. The stars shimmered brightly, scattered across the velvet darkness like promises waiting to be fulfilled. "God," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "you really don't waste anything, do you?" The cool breeze brushed her face, gentle and alive, almost as if heaven was smiling back. She knelt down in the grass and prayed. Not for blessings, not for success, but in gratitude. "Thank you for the closed door," she said softly. "Thank you for the pain that pushed me. Thank you for reminding me that you never left me, even when I thought you had." That night in my car, when I felt completely alone, you were already setting this all in motion. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of peace, full of presence. And then, like a whisper carried on the wind, she heard it again. That same voice she'd heard through her phone all those months ago. "My child, nothing in your life is wasted. Every detour is a direction. Every loss is a lesson. Every moment of pain carries purpose. You were never forgotten. You were chosen to hear me, and to help others hear me too." Amelia's tears fell freely now, but her heart felt lighter than ever. She stood, gazing at the stars one last time, and smiled. "I understand now," she whispered. This was never about what I lost. It was about what you were building in me. And with that, she turned to go inside, ready for whatever came next. Because now, she no longer feared the unknown. She knew that every closed door, every heartbreak, every unexpected turn in her life carried divine fingerprints. It was all leading somewhere beautiful. It was all part of God's perfect plan. And she knew, beyond any doubt, that night when heaven interrupted her sorrow to say, "This is not an accident." It truly wasn't. She was meant to hear it. She was meant to live it. And now, she was meant to share it.